Hey Goblin, you've been really practicing those war drums.
I'll bring the generic Goblin noise!
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. with free weekly content and free shipping on orders over $150. You can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the Generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game features Seb, Maxim, and Felix. I've decided to take Krenko out for a spin, keeping a Nykthos Shrine of Nyx, Sol Ring, Valakut the Molten Pinnacle, a Snow-Covered Mountain, Skirk Prospector, Bitter Reunion, and Isolated Watchtower. Seb has built the somewhat newly released Mishra Eminent One, and he's keeping Karn's Sign of Urza, Star Compass, Lithoform Engine, 2 Swamps, Tribute Mage, and a Mountain. Max is playing his Faldorn deck, trying to get a better sense of what he needs for it, keeping a Game Trail, Forest, Evolving Wilds, Scavenging Ooze, Fyndhorn Elves, Beastmaster Ascension, and Reckless Impulse. Felix is rocking Wernog and Bjorna, keeping Krark-Clan Ironworks, Cloud Shift, Agent of the Iron Throne, Azorius Signet, Ancient Den, Vault of Whispers, and Reliquary Tower. Seb wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws and plays a Mountain. Max plays a Game Trail for turn, revealing a Forest, and taps it for a green for Fyndhorn Elves. He passes after that. Felix just plays an Ancient Den. I draw and play a tapped Valakut. Seb plays a Swamp for turn and pays 2 for a Star Compass. He passes after that. Max draws and plays a Forest. He's got enough for Faldorn, casting his commander and passing to Felix. Felix plays another artifact land and casts Wernog. As it comes in, we all choose to take a damage to deny Felix from getting more clues, and he only gains 1. He passes to me after that. I play a Snow-Covered Mountain and then cast Sol Ring. I follow it up with Bitter Reunion, discarding Isolated Watchtower, and draw 2 cards. I then pass turn. Seb draws and plays a Swamp. He then casts Karn's Sign of Urza, and upticks the Walker, picking Felix, who gives him a Phyrexian Metamorph and exiles a Cursed Mirror. With nothing else, Seb passes. Max draws and casts a Reckless Impulse, exiling a Forest and Enter the Unknown. He plays the Forest and casts the spell, making 2 Wolves and getting to explore with Faldorn. This has him revealing a Utopia Sprawl off the top, and he keeps it there, putting a +1/+1 counter onto Faldorn. Max then plays a Stomping Ground and takes 2 so it comes in untapped. He then activates Faldorn, discarding a card and exiling the Utopia Sprawl before casting it onto a Forest. With all that done, he passes. Felix plays a Reliquary Tower and then casts an Azorius Signet. He then plays an Altar of the Brood, and following that, uses Cloud Shift on Wernog. We all decide to take the damage instead of making clues from both the Enter the Battlefield trigger and the Leave Battlefield trigger, but Felix still gets to make 2 clue tokens and mills us for a total of 3. After that, he passes. I play a Mountain for turn, and then cast a Ruby Medallion. I'm then able to cast a Beetleback Chief, making 2 Goblin tokens as it enters, and I pass. Seb draws and downticks Karn to get the Cursed Mirror to hand. He then casts a Phyrexian Metamorph, losing 2 life, and has it come as a copy of my Sol Ring. He then plays the Cursed Mirror as a copy of a Beetleback Chief, making some blockers. Without a land though, he has to pass. Max draws and activates Faldorn, exiling Jeska's Will off the top. He casts it, targeting Seb to get 6 red mana, and exiles his top 3. He reveals a Purphoros, Azusa, and Rob the Archives. He uses 4 of the red to cast Purphoros. He then uses 2 remaining red to cast Rob the Archives, making another wolf token and dealing 2 to us as it comes in, as well as sacrificing a wolf token to copy it. He then exiles his top 4 and plays a Forest for among them, making another wolf token and dealing 2 to us. He then casts Azusa, which deals 2 from Azusa and 2 from the wolf entering, and is then able to play 2 lands from exile, dealing 4 more because 2 wolves enter as well. With all that chunk of damage from Perforos resolving, Max finishes up by casting 3 visits to find a Cinder Glade. Moving to combat, he swings 3 wolves at me, dealing 6, and I take the hit and he passes. Felix draws and plays an Arcane Signet, which mills us all for 1 as it comes in. He then cracks a clue token, drawing a card, but has no land to play and has to pass. I draw and play a mountain. I've got enough mana for Krenko, and then a Skirk Prospector, and I then pay 1 to sacrifice Bitter Reunion to give all of my creatures haste. This has me activating Krenko, making a bunch of Goblin tokens. I sacrifice 2 of them to the Skirk Prospector to help cast a Conspicuous Snoop, which reveals a Legion Warboss off the top, which I then cast as well. Moving to combat, the Warboss makes me a token that has to attack, so I swing it at Felix. Felix agrees to take the 1, and I then use the Goblin for mana in my second main phase to help cast a Goblin Matron off the top. I then search for a Runeveld Hordemaster, putting it to hand, and pass. Seb draws and upticks Karn. This has Felix giving him a Cyclonic Rift and exiling a Thran Dynamo, which kind of makes sense since Seb has no blue mana to use it. However, Seb then casts a Gilded Lotus, and he then casts Mishra. Moving to combat, Seb makes a Lotus copy with Mishra, and then in his post-combat main phase, taps enough mana to cast Terminate and take out Faldorn. With nothing else, he passes. Max draws and casts a Beastmaster Ascension. Going to combat, Max swings all out at me, giving the Ascension its 7 needed counters. I throw all of my goblins in front, but unfortunately still let 2 through, and I drop to 5 life. After combat, Max plays a mountain, and then casts a Scavenging Ooze, dealing 2 to the table thanks to Perforos. He passes after that. Felix draws and casts a Krark Clan Ironworks. He sacrifices a clue token to draw before playing a Bloodstained Mire. He cracks that, losing 1 to find a mountain. Felix then also sacrifices the Vault of Whispers for 2 more colorless, and uses that for an Orzhov Signet. He then plays an Agent of the Iron Throne. Felix sacrifices the Signet for 2 mana, dealing 1 to each of us from the Agent of the Iron Throne, and casts a Basilisk Collar. He then sacrifices the collar for another 2 colorless, and sacrifices the Ancient Den and Orzhov Signet as well, which, because the Agent of the Iron Throne triggers, kills me. Felix then uses his mana to cast an Aetherflux Reservoir, and sacrifices the Arcane Signet and Altar of Brood to help cast Panharmonicon, gaining 7 life. Down to only 2 lands though, Felix has nothing else to do but pass his turn, and on his end step, Max casts Beast Within and blows up Seb's Gilded Lotus. Seb draws and upticks Karn, choosing Felix once more. Seb finally reveals an island, and after some intense negotiation, Felix agrees to give it to him, assuming whatever Seb does in the future doesn't punish him as much as everyone else. Seb plays it for turn, and going to combat, he makes a copy of his Soul Ring with Mishra and swings it at Max. Max blocks with the Scavenging Ooze though. Seb then passes, and on his end step, Max exiles a bunch of cards from Seb's graveyard with the Ooze. Max draws and goes to combat. He swings everything at Seb, and as predicted, Seb overloads Cyclonic Rift in response. After combat, Max plays a Spire Garden and starts rebuilding by casting Perforos, then the Utopia Sprawl, then the Scavenging Ooze, and then Azusa. He finishes up before passing with a Findhorn Elves, and we move to Felix's turn. Felix draws, but having only 2 lands and access to 1 color, has to pass. Seb draws and upticks Karn on Felix, who gives him a Master Transmuter. For combat, Seb makes another copy of the Soul Ring with Mishra, and then passes through his phases. In his post-combat main phase, he casts Ugin the Ineffable. He then down-ticks Ugin to destroy Max's scavenging ooze. He then casts a Lith aforementioned, and a Mystic Remora, and passes. Max draws and plays a Tireless Tracker. He plays Faldorn again, and then recasts the Beastmaster Ascension, passing. Felix draws but has nothing and has to pass. Seb plays an island for turn, and upticks Karn again, and this time Felix gives him a Mycosynth Lattice. Seb then plays the Lattice and goes to combat, making a Cursed Mirror token thanks to Mishra. He moves through his combat step and casts a Scrap Mastery, which wipes away all permanents since they're artifacts, but does give Seb and Felix back some boards of artifacts while Max is stuck with only a Soul Ring and an Emerald Medallion. Seb passes turn. Max draws, but taking Felix's spot and having nothing to do, has to pass. Felix plays an Evolving Wilds and cracks it, milling everyone for 2 as he finds a basic. He then replays Wernog, and both Seb and Max take the clue tokens. Felix then replays Agent of the Iron Throne and passes, with Seb cracking the clue on his end step. Seb draws and plays an island. He then plays Master Transmuter and passes. During his end step, Max cracks his clue token to draw a card. Max draws for turn and plays a mountain. He then unearths Mishra's research desk, and then sacrifices it, revealing 2 green cards that he can't cast. With nothing else, he passes. Felix draws a land and plays an island. He then plays Bjorna, and then casts the Krark Clan Ironworks. He then sacrifices a clue token to the Krark Clan Ironworks to pay for the equip cost of the collar and put it onto Bjorna, and then sacrifices one of his other clue tokens to help pay to activate the other clue token to draw a card. This deals 6 total to the table thanks to his double Agent of the Iron Throne, and he goes to combat. This has Felix poking Max with Wernog for 1, and he passes after that. Seb draws and plays a Swamp. He then plays a Thought Vessel, and casts a Tribute Mage, going to find an Ichor Wellspring. He then casts that to draw a card. Max draws, but without a forest, has to pass. Felix draws and plays a Swamp. He recasts Panharmonicon, and once that's out, casts a Ghostly Flicker on both Wernog and his Ancient Den. This has Seb taking the clue on both triggers, while Max pays life on both times, while Max chooses to pay some life instead. Felix then sacrifices a clue to crack another clue, which kills Seb. And he then casts a Vampiric Tutor. After that, he passes, with Max cracking a clue token on his end step. Max draws and plays a Professional Facebreaker, but with nothing else, has to pass. Felix draws and overloads a Rise and Shine, which makes all of his artifacts into 4/4s, and he swings at Max for lethal, taking the game. Game review time. So that was a bit of a weird one. I think that Seb was kind of panicked because he was at such a low life total that using the combo of the Mycosynth Lattice and the Scrap Mastery, he felt he was going to be able to buy himself some time. Unfortunately, he didn't really get very far despite being an artifact-based deck, and as we saw, Agent of the Iron Throne does a lot of damage, especially when combined with partner commanders. I think Felix was equally surprised that Seb cast that Scrap Mastery after he saw how many artifacts went to his graveyard, but he wasn't one to lick a gift horse in the mouth. His deck reminds me very much of Kevin's Wernog and Zofina deck, and I really like both decks. I think Krenko's reputation got ahead of it, as everyone at the table was pretty much afraid of me going off. I did have the Skirk Prospector out, not to mention the Conspicuous Snoop, which, yes, in theory are 2 very good combo pieces for the deck. I guess had I been able to live for another turn and get that Runefeld Hordemaster out, things would have been a little bit different. This was one of Max's more aggressive games. He had Perforos out very early, not to mention a bunch of Wolf tokens, and that Beastmaster Ascension was brutal. Only having to attack once to get it turned on was huge, and as you saw, as soon as his Wolf army hit one person, that person went down hard. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., multi-zone, original magic art, and alter sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.